What's up, guys? This is Julian, and I have another lucky interviewer for today. And this interviewer is the amazing Reuben Bressler. Reuben, what's up?
Hi, how's it going?
Oh, I'm doing so well. I'm super excited to have you here.
Excellent.
I've been in Magic for about a year and a half now, and I've known about you like the whole time. Like,
Excellent.
you were like
Okay.
the first podcast I listened to, and then just kind of everything that you've done. It's really exciting to have you on. I'm really, really excited to have you here.
Oh, that's nice of you to say. Thanks.
No problem at all. Now, the YouTube channel that I'm doing is kind of a YouTube channel for people who are in kind of the same situation I'm in, which is like I've moneyed a couple of Star Cities, I've like top 8'd some PTQs, but I can't quite get onto the train. I can't get to the next level. But I was hoping that maybe today you could kind of talk to us a little bit about like how you first got into Magic. I don't know if you used to be a comedian or you still are a comedian as well as the Magic stuff.
Right.
But just kind of give us.
I still am. I still do comedy whenever I can.
Awesome. So how did all this first start? How did you first start doing Magic?
I was at a friend of mine's house. I used to live in Columbus, Ohio. That's where I lived before this. And I was at a friend of mine's house, and he and another friend of mine were like looking through old comic books, like old Mad TV comics and some, other, I don't know, things that 11 and 12-year-olds are into, and they started playing Magic.
Okay.
I was like, "What's that?" And they're like, "Oh, this is Magic."
Right.
And I got really into it pretty much immediately because it was, a game that I could wrap my head around that was really complicated, but also had lots of gameplay that I was used to, and it had a fantasy theme, which I loved.
Yeah.
And pretty much ever since then, I started playing when I was 12. Right after Exodus came out is when I started playing. And I've taken, everybody takes breaks, but
right.
Other than the couple breaks I've taken, I've been playing Magic ever since. So that's how I got into Magic.
That is awesome. And what about the comedy side of things? Did that just kind of go in parallel, just a different part of your life, but happening?
Well, yeah, it was a different part of my life. I started the reason why I started doing stand-up comedy is because I was on a youth group trip with. I used to be a member of a Jewish youth group, and we went to Israel. And we had a talent show at the end of the trip, and one of the chaperones was like, "You have to do something. You're funny. You have to perform." And I'm like, "I've never done anything like this."
Okay.
And so I came up with something that was just a bunch of inside jokes in a form that I decided would be funny, which was I can do like a decent Gollum impression from Lord of the Rings.
What?
And so I did myself talking to Gollum, and Gollum being confused by all of these inside jokes, and everybody loved it. And ever since then, stand-up comedy's been the #1 priority for me.
Wow.
I started doing that when I was like 17 or 18.
That's awesome.
And then those two met when they're around episode 40 or 41 of the Magic show. Evan said he was going to be away for a week, and he said that if anyone wanted to do a replacement Magic show, that people should write in or just make a video. And my friend Nick was like, "We should do this." We were both into Magic. We were both comedians. And we made episode 42 of the Magic show, which was previewing Future Sight.
Wow, I got to go back and look this up. I didn't know that.
So, that one's a pretty good one. I think we did pretty good on our predictions.
Awesome.
But that's how I got into it. And then, so I went away from Magic for a little while, focused on my stand-up and on my schooling. And then I got back into it. I top-8'd a Star City Open. There's a whole bunch of other things. Like I got hired to write for Star City for a little while, and then I left Star City. And then I top-8'd an Open, and I started writing again for Star City. And Evan called me out on Twitter one day and was like, "You need to start making videos again."
Really?
And I was like, "Geez, okay." Because I'd done another video series called The Main Phase.
Okay.
Which was on Star City for about half of its life, and before that was on TCG Player. And those were fairly well received. Those were just sort of, I don't know if you're familiar with Philip DeFranco.
I've heard the name, but not so much.
They're similar-ish to Phil DeFranco's videos, except for about Magic, of course.
Okay.
But they had my own personal twist on things. And I didn't want to do that again. I felt like that was too harebrained, and that also took a lot of editing work, and I'm not very good at it. And so I'd been doing comedy news for my college's basically Saturday Night Live variant called
Oh,
Fridays
awesome.
Live at Ohio University.
Okay.
And so I just was like, I loved doing that. I was the head writer on that. That was my favorite thing to do, was to just tell the fake news. And I just decided Magic doesn't have a news show,
Right.
and also Magic players aren't patient enough to just sit around and watch the regular news. So I'll be the Daily Show. Basically, was my
I like
my
it.
whole thing.
Man,
And
that's
I started doing it, and then at Grand Prix Nashville, Evan came up to me and was like, "I want to hire you."
Wow.
And I was like, "That's such a deal.
Wow.
That is 100% okay." So yeah, so that's my life now.
That is so cool. That's so. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. Are we gonna be lucky enough to hear a little bit of this Gollum voice that you said you were
the
so
Gollum
good at?
voice?
Yeah.
He's,
Can you pull that one out from the dredges?
Yeah, I used to do a lot of play, like theater in high school.
Okay.
And so I always used to do the Gollum talking to himself in the lake.
Sure.
Soliloquy to try out for plays, and so I could do like
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm gonna edit like Gollum's face on top of that. That was perfect.
Yeah, I try.
That was incredible. You gotta do a whole new thing like that.
Oh jeez.
That's a golden ticket.
That would be rough. It hurts my throat to do that voice over an extended period of time, but it is a ton of fun to do.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I might do that.
That would be why I would watch it. No, I already watch it, but
enough.
I would watch it twice.
The only impression I've done on the Magic or on the Newsning so far is I did the Swedish Chef after an episode.
Oh.
I was just messing around, and but the cameras were recording, and so they put it. It was a little epilogue after one of the episodes. I forget which one it was. That was a ton of fun.
I don't remember seeing that. I thought I watched them all.
It was after the credits.
Oh man, you tricked me. Yeah, I didn't see it then. That is awesome. Okay, so now we've kind of already talked about newsing that, and I didn't know that the main phase was a video cast as well.
I did like 12, 13 episodes of the main phase.
Okay.
Yeah, that was sort of in my experimental, alternative comedy phase.
Sure.
I'm still an alternative comedian, but that was really out there kind of stuff. So.
Okay, awesome. And right now you're on the In Contention podcast, right? You're a host on the In Contention podcast. And how long have you been doing that? Since its inception, or?
No, not been one of the hosts on the In Contention podcast since the beginning. I was on, I want to say mid-60s, maybe mid-70s. We're on episode 93 now. We just recorded episode 93 today.
Awesome.
That'll be coming out Wednesday. And I think that I got added onto the full-time cast in the mid-60s or 70s of those. But funny story, the initial name of the In Contention podcast before it was called the In Contention podcast was called Reuben Bressler's Little Urban Achievers. just as a joke. Like, I wasn't even in the room, and it was like Matt and Sam and some other guys recording at this place called Momo's, which is like a combination bowling alley, tea shop, hangout place in Columbus, where they would just record about Magic every couple weeks, and they just decided that they were going to call it the Reuben Bressler Little Urban Achievers, like Big Lebowski style. And so I thought that was funny. And I was on a couple episodes early on when it was called something else. They didn't keep that name for long. It was only called that for like 3 or 4 episodes. Okay. And then it got called something else, and I was on a couple episodes of that. And then I got brought on full time.
I had no idea that it had gone through so many transformations.
Yeah, it's been around for a while, but it was not in its current state. Even me, Matt, and Sam, weren't. Most people are used to that group of 3, even though now Joey's on instead of Sam because Sam's working for Wizards.
Right.
People were used to that, but even before that, I wasn't on the show, and it was just the 2 of them, and they would have occasional guests, I think. And then before that was a huge crew. It was like 8 people that would like shift in and out.
Man, that's wild. I didn't know any of that. I listened to it, I guess, since you've been on it. I thought, probably since you've been on it, maybe a little bit before, I guess. But I didn't know about all that. That's crazy. That's cool.
Yeah, it's for people who care about the history of podcasts, I guess it's interesting. I mean, not a lot of podcasts last longer than like 30 episodes.
Yeah.
Right? And so once you hit 100,
Yeah,
you're
you're
doing
golden.
something really right, and it's
Yeah.
like so we're about to hit 100. A team. Are you familiar with the A team?
Absolutely, yeah.
A team. A team's about to hit 100. They're one of my favorites.
Yeah,
Oh
me
my
too.
god, they're
Absolutely.
so awesome to listen to. Yeah, they're about to hit 100. Who else is going to hit 100 soon? I don't know who else is even close to
Well,
up there, but yeah.
UMTG taps, but they only did one in the past 3 months.
Right. And we stole Joey, so.
Right.
But yeah, it's tough. So
That's awesome. That is really cool. I definitely I tried to do my own podcast. It was for other video game stuff, and we hit about episode
sure,
8 before we were like, all right,
right.
8 of these, we're done.
That's enough.
So I got a
It's
lot of respect
tough.
for
I
people
mean,
who do that.
one thing about Magic that makes it easier to podcast about Magic is that there's always new stuff happening.
Okay.
So whereas a video game, like if you're doing a very specific video game centric podcast, you might have a new map every once in a while, or I mean, a new game will come out every couple of years. But Magic has a new set every 3 months,
Right.
right? So the turnover is so much faster that you have so much to talk about.
That's fair. That makes sense. Speaking of new sets, that was a good transition. Thank you very much. What do you think
there
about
you
the
go.
new Return to Ravnica stuff? Anything that's really caught your eye or something you're really excited for?
We talked a little bit about the new set today on
yeah.
In Contention, and Cranny and I had a big discussion about Vraska.
Okay.
Where he thinks Vraska is very, very good, and I think Vraska is not good.
Really, just not good. Just done.
Just
Get
don't
out
think
of here.
I think it has its applications, but I don't think it's going to be any I don't think it'll be $20, for example.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I do not see big things for this guy.
Sure.
I don't know. I think that the uncounterable cycle is very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think that a lot of players think that counterspells and discard and land destruction and things like that are all just feel bads and shouldn't be in Magic. Like you'll play on Moto in the casual room and you'll cast a Mana Leak and then your opponent will be like, no counterspells, disconnect. And people will do that, and because they're small children. It's part of the game, and also there is nothing more interactive than a counterspell.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Right. You're directly interacting with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think it's sending the game in an interesting direction. And also, counterspells aren't going to be bad or anything, just because this cycle of 10 spells. By the time the next set comes out, so this cycle of 10 spells plus Cavern of Souls isn't going to make this just awful. Counterspells aren't just going to suddenly be awful, right? They're all still going to be fine. It's just that these 10 or 11 things are going to make them slightly less powerful.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense.
And so I'm happy with the set. I think that it's very exciting looking. Yeah, it's really flavorful. Golgari looks like it's going to be extremely powerful.
That troll, yeah.
Yeah, that troll's insane. Pretty good with In Contention's preview card, the Skulltopus.
What? Is it on the podcast?
Yeah, we did a preview card last week. I wasn't on that episode, sleep, but I was coming back from Minneapolis and I needed to sleep, and I just slept through all the phone calls, so they recorded an episode without me. But Golgari looks like it's going to be extremely powerful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In my play group, we're brewing either that deck or how to beat that deck, basically. It was kind of what we're talking about. So
right.
Definitely. Yep. Awesome. So now, when you agreed to do the interview, the first thing I did was I went to Star City, and I'm like, all right, let's look at his history. I'm kind of curious what else, because I haven't been in Magic as long as a lot of other people. And I noticed there's that big gap, 2008, 2012. So now, did you also kind of leave Magic for a time, or did you just not work with Star City during that time?
It's sort of a combination of both. So what happened in 2008 was the editor at the time and I didn't see eye to eye.
Okay.
I was writing a lot about culture stuff, not about the game.
Okay.
Right? So I was writing about the people, not the game. And so I did an interview with Lan D. Ho, who's an old school pro from back in the day, who at the time, and might still be, producing a documentary about Magic called I Came to Game.
Okay.
And I did like a 4,000-word interview with him. And I sent it in as my article for the week, and the editor at the time was like, we're not going to publish that. And I was like, why? And then he said, because basically it doesn't help Star City in any way. Like we're not making money off of the documentary, which was a foolish reason to me, but
Yeah.
to him it made sense. Which is, he's the editor, he's fine.
Sure.
He has the final say.
Of course.
And so then he was like, "So I'm not publishing this. Send us another article by the time it's due." And it was Sunday, and my articles went up Monday.
Oh yeah.
So I needed to send it within like next 6 hours. And I was like, "I'm not writing a new article."
Right.
And he said, "If you don't write a new article, then then we don't need your services anymore." And then I was like, "Oh yeah, well I quit."
What?
So it was like where it was like you're about to be fired, and then I quit instead.
Holy cow!
So that was a fun little interaction. And so then I sort of fell away from writing about Magic, and other things got like I really needed to get back into school, and stand up. Like I was really into stand up at the time, and so I was basically casual Magic, F&M'ing a lot. And then I randomly top 8'd a Star City Open a couple years later.
Sure.
With a deck that I borrowed that morning.
Really?
Well, that's a deck that like Athens Blue is the name of the deck, and I went to school in Athens, Ohio. So like, of course, one of my friends had a copy of it, and I just randomly top 8'd the tournament with it. So
was that Legacy?
That's Legacy, yes.
Okay, that's okay.
That's Athens Blue is mono blue control, but it's notable because it uses Energy Field, which is a rare from the Saga that nobody should ever use.
I don't even know what that does.
It's real bad. You don't want to play that card. But so I wrote an article, and I'm decent at writing. Like that's what I went to school for.
No,
and
absolutely.
So
oh yeah.
At that point, Steve was like, "Hey, you want to come back and write for us?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I started writing again, and then all that other stuff happened.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I mean, I'm glad that even though it didn't work out at first, I'm glad you're back, definitely, because you brought a lot to Star City.
And I certainly got offers to write for other websites after I left. After I left Star City, right after that, like a couple weeks after that, was Worlds in Memphis that year. And in Worlds, someone came up to me and said, "Hey, we're starting a new Magic website soon. We saw you just left Star City. We might be interested in bringing you on. Here's my business card." And it was Tristan Sean Gregson from Channel Fireball.
Hey, there you go.
And I lost the card. So I never ended
up... Oh, man.
Then a year or two later, Adam Staborski from Gathering Magic gave me his card, and I lost his card.
Okay, all right.
So I just was real bad at keeping in touch. Like, I wasn't real into Magic anyway, so I didn't feel like I was going to help.
Okay.
But... it would have been nice to make new videos or keep writing for, make a couple a week. It would have been fine. But, since Evan had brought me in originally, the first video I made was for Evan, right? Was to substitute on the Magic show. And then I did another substitute episode when I went to Grand Prix Montreal during Time Spiral Block.
Okay.
And he couldn't go. So I did a sort of a report from Montreal kind of episode.
Okay.
And I'd always been in contact with Evan about various things. I always felt like Star City was where I was going to end up anyway, in terms of writing. I never thought I would get hired full time, but I sort of have a soft spot for Star City, and so I'm pretty happy that I'm back.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's great to have you back. Now the sweet tweets, was that your idea, or were you assigned that, or how did that come to be?
Well, Sweet Tweets was a thing that's been on the newsletter for Star City Games for years.
Right. Oh, okay,
And Glenn Jones, who still does it for the newsletter, was in charge of it originally. Then they decided to put it on Star City Games because the 20 tweets had been so popular on Legit, basically, was like, hey, that's a good idea, we're going to do something similar.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a secret that they're a similar idea, so...
Sure.
And then I got assigned to it, and I was like... I wanted to do it anyway, even though they assigned it to me. And so I took it over, and that's fun for me. I love being on Twitter and interacting with people. I'm in charge of, 5 Twitter accounts of various types right now.
Really? Do you do the Star City Twitter accounts?
I have access to the Star City Games Twitter and the Star City Games Live accounts.
Okay.
And I also run my own personal account, Mox Ruby.
Right.
And my comedy Twitter account that has nothing to do with Magic.
Oh.
I made a second Twitter account because my original Twitter account was just being dominated by Magic talk,
Sure.
and some followed me because I'm a comedian. So I decided to split them up. And then I also have access to the In Contention Twitter.
Oh,
so
right, of course.
those are my Twitter accounts.
Man, I bet that.
Yeah.
Do you ever post things to the wrong one? Like, oh, great, delete it, go post it the other place.
I do sometimes. For example, this week I was doing the daily update for Star City Games, and I posted it under Star City Live by accident. So,
all right, there you go.
But
now, how often you do? I'm a little bit embarrassed to ask, but I can't. You do commentary for Star City Live as well, right? On occasion?
Yes. Yeah, well, me and Glenn Jones alternate the coverage coordinator position,
Okay.
which is basically like we're in charge of the sideboard, right? So we do the deck techs and the interviews and some stuff like that, and we also pick feature matches and stuff like that.
Okay.
And we step into the booth occasionally, but we aren't regular commentators. I was a regular commentator at the last Invitational. That was sort of an experiment to see if we could do that, but that it would have been. It was way too much work.
Yeah.
For me to be trying to do. So.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. How do you go by picking feature matches? Do you kind of go by like famous people and the decks they're playing and who they're playing against, or like?
Typically, the way I do it is early in the day. For the first round, I'll pick somebody well known, just because they're well known.
Sure, just get the Jerry Thompson in there, or get the Chapin in there.
And then I'll walk around the room and look for interesting decks.
Okay. When
I find an interesting deck, then I'll try and put them on camera, or for the next couple rounds, because the next couple rounds after that, the good decks will start winning again.
Sure.
And the interesting decks often will lose again.
Oh, I see. Okay. You don't want to get this weird 5-color trading post deck in round 9, like.
Well, you won't, because they'll be 2 and 4, and nobody wants to see that.
Right.
Now, if you get every once in a while, you'll get lucky, and you'll get a 5 and 1 that's playing the Stuffy Doll deck in Minneapolis, for example. Right. And so usually that happens, but you can't put them on camera every round.
Right.
So what I try to do is I try to alternate big names with interesting decks, and it's a tightrope, because on Twitter people will be like, "Hey, we want to see don't want to see this Delver on Maverick matchup anymore. Put something interesting on camera." And then I'll be like, "All right, here's something interesting on camera," and then oftentimes that player won't be as good as Jerry Thompson or Brad Nelson or the other big names in the room, and so then they'll be like, "This guy was awful. Put the good players back on camera."
And you're like, "Then it's rug mirror matches."
Brick and rug, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I can't win. Basically, is the answer there. But I try and do the best I can.
Awesome.
So
awesome. Well, I think you guys are doing a great job. And like, just thinking about how it was a year ago when we're watching the Cobblade era compared to how it is now, just the coverage has just. I mean, it's just gone up and up and up in quality. It's really, really good.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk recently in the Magic community about the Magic coverage.
Yeah, I saw Aaron Forsythe's Twitter.
Aaron Forsythe tweeted about Cedric's article. I believe Brad has an article going up tomorrow discussing the same issue, which is where do we go from here, right? So when you compare us to League of Legends or StarCraft, which have been around less for a smaller amount of time than Magic has, have exploded in terms of how much people watch them on the internet. There's a lot of there seems to be a lot of room for growth there. Now, it's not a direct translation, because Magic isn't a video game, right? It's a turn-based game, so it's less exciting to physically watch.
Right.
But there's a lot of good points there, and it's a discussion that needs to be had. So, and I'm hoping that Star City Games continues to be on the forefront of that.
Yeah.
Because I'm very happy with the coverage. Even when I feel like I'm not doing the best job ever, like the people that are around me, all the directors are just so good. Yeah. Like they've hired really talented people. And I'm just a pretty face on television, and I get all the credit, but I also get all the blame, which is fair.
Yeah.
So, I hope that the good news is that people look at Star City Games coverage and compare it to Wizards coverage, either favorably or unfavorably. They say, compared to the company that's making the game, how I feel about the coverage of this other tournament series, and we're
Right.
the only ones that are on that on that level.
No, without a
So
doubt.
I'm happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool. I mean, one thing was like at my local store, we just started trying to record our F&Ms a little bit and start doing some play testing, inspired by
Cool,
you guys. And
nice.
until that time, I never realized how tough it was. Like
Yeah,
I thought you just put a webcam on the ceiling and just did it. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is way tougher than I thought it was gonna
yeah.
be.
It's not easy. It's
No, not at all.
they've got well, let me see, one, two, three, four. They have 6 cameras on the feature match area, plus a camera on the commentators, plus a camera on the sideboard
Right.
that they need to, alternate in the correct order, get the sound all right. It's not easy. Plus all the graphics,
Yeah.
uh,
Oh yeah.
which I think that the Star City graphics are better than Wizards, but personally. But I'm a company man.
Sure,
You'll
of
never hear me
course.
say a bad word.
Of course.
So yeah, I think that that what you're talking about, which is streaming live Magic from shops around the world,
Mhm.
is something that Magic can definitely use. I remember I saw a Facebook album for one of the Star City Games IQs that took place in Portugal,
Oh, okay.
and they had a feature match camera set up, and you could watch it on a television over on the other side of the store.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really
That
cool.
was
Yeah, yeah. That's. I mean, I used to play StarCraft 2, try to do that competitively a couple years ago, and that's how they did it in local shops for StarCraft 2. Is they'd be
nice.
playing and then they'd have a camera up. I mean, it was awesome. I think one of the things I respect most about Star City is the fact that they're so mobile.
Yeah,
Because with our store, we finally got a good place for that camera, and then we screwed it into the ceiling, and it's never moving again.
right.
And for Star City, it's like, no, you got 2 days, and
We
then
move
it's
it
up
every
and
week.
gone.
Yep,
That
we
is.
set it all up and take it all down every week.
Do you do a lot of that too when you're down there? Do you guys have to help out with just the
I help
setup?
out some. I'm not like an expert at anything, so I'm
Sure.
pretty much the guy that like sets up the background and
Okay.
like occasionally will carry wires, but like I'm not good with the technical side. You know.
Okay. Yeah.
Plus, I'm doing a lot of writing
No. Yeah.
as setup.
Absolutely. And just
So
scouting
I
around
typically
and
don't have a ton of time.
yeah.
But
Absolutely.
typically, I'm the guy that goes and gets coffee, for example, in the morning
That's an important person to have.
yeah, before the coverage coordinator gets there. So,
Absolutely. Okay.
or
Cool.
the coverage runner, I should say.
So now, if you don't mind me asking a little bit about in your personal life, well, I guess a little bit, but like is your primary income magic or comedy, or do you have like a 9 to 5 that you do?
My 9 to 5 is Star City Games.
Okay.
I work at Star City Games 10 to 6, Monday through Friday. I update the Facebook and the Twitter, and I write. I check wording on a lot of the stuff that comes out of Star City Games. I do a lot of writing for Star City Games. I record various shows.
Yeah, you do a lot. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and also I also in the mornings most of the time, especially on Mondays, I will go help do orders.
Okay.
So like everybody at Star City Games does their job, but then they also do other jobs. That's a lot of what goes on there. So that's my full-time job. And then on weekends, I will go to events, which is also part of my full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
The coverage coordinator, and those are the real tough ones because I have like a 14-hour, 15-hour day on Saturday
Mm-hmm.
and like a 16, 17-hour day on Sunday.
Yeah, that's brutal.
And yeah, they're pretty rough, but it's worth it. I love doing it. So.
Yeah. Do you get assigned to go to coverage places, or do you ask, or is it kind of a mix of both?
It's sort of a mix of both. It's Glenn and I alternate, right? Who's going to be doing which events, and we'll pick which ones we really want to do, and then for the rest of them, we'll sort of divvy them up fairly so that they're spaced nicely,
Okay.
so that he and I aren't on the road 3 weekends in a row, for
Sure.
example, if we can help it. So there's that.
Awesome.
So yeah.
That's really neat. Well, I think we're getting close to kind of wrapping it up a little bit. I have some
Okay.
kind of general questions. Well, I don't know if they're general questions, but so one question that I asked Jerry Thompson, and I'm gonna ask you the same question, is
Sure.
if you could take a card from like the history of Magic, any card you want, and just kind of stick it into Standard right now and go like playing it open tomorrow, even though tomorrow's Monday, but like
Right.
what do you think it would be? What do you wish you could play with?
Well, Jerry lives across the street from me.
Uh-oh. I didn't know
So-
that. Really?
Yeah, he lives across the street from me right now. Yeah, he suggested this apartment complex when I was about to move here. So
That's awesome.
he lives across. What did he say?
He said Goblin Guide. He said that
Goblin Guide's a good one.
Standard needed a
I like
mono
that.
red deck.
I agree. I think that that's a really good one.
Yeah, it really surprised me. I've gotten some people say like Ancestral Recall just to
And
get into
now that's
Delver, and I'm like, yeah,
no,
okay, thank
get
you.
out of here.
Like,
That's awful.
right?
I think that if you asked me that question in like 2 years, I would say Thalia because I really like Thalia a
Okay,
lot. Because I think that that is just the best way to keep control decks in check as an aggro
sure.
deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes
I mean,
sense.
she's played in Maverick and Legacy. I mean,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. Um, I I want to say something like Spectral Procession
Oh, okay.
because tokens decks are real good for any metagame, really. I mean, right
Yeah,
now it would be rough because after rotation, Lingering Souls and Tangible Virtue is going to be a deck.
yeah, that's true.
So probably not Spectral Procession. That's probably not a good one right now.
It'll make it too
So,
good.
yeah, exactly. Um, Maybe Smother. I
Oh,
think
okay.
Smother would be real good right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
And I know with Ravnica, we're getting
Gotham's
kind
real
of a
good.
new Smother a little bit, right?
Yeah,
The
we're getting the Smother Vindicate that's
right,
uncounterable.
right.
Yeah, that card's bonkers.
Yeah, it's gonna be ridiculous.
Yeah, that card's gonna be real good in every format.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
hmm. Goblin Guide's a real good one. I like that one.
I was really impressed when he said that. I was like, wow, that was deep. Like, and he gave this really good explanation about. I mean, he's Jerry Thompson, right?
Sure.
I mean, he just makes the metagame basically.
Yeah, it's his job to do that.
Right, right. It was really cool.
I think that Standard could also do like if you want to grow mono black control as a deck, which it
Hmm.
seems was sort of trying to do.
Sure.
Then you really need another card that pushes the Swamps Matters theme.
Okay.
So you want to reprint something like Cobble Coffers.
Yeah. Okay. I could see that.
Um,
That'd be kind of nuts.
yeah. So I think that that's a good one also.
Awesome. Cool. Now let's say you were going to like a tournament tomorrow and you had to play Standard, Modern, and Legacy. What decks would you play in each? What do you think? Just kind of top of your head. What do you think are the most powerful decks right now, or your favorite decks to play, or whatever?
Well, I played F&M on Friday
Okay.
with Black Red Zombies, and that deck was bad.
What?
That deck won 2 straight opens, and I have no idea how. No idea how that deck wins. I think that Zombie Pod is where I want to be
That's an exciting deck.
with zombies. If I was playing zombies, and I really like zombies, and I really like Birthing Pod, so I think that that's a good spot to be at.
Okay.
Modern, I think that I was on the right track with my modern deck when I played in Grand Prix Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I came up just short of making day 2, I lost to my own deck building, which I was playing Protean Hulk combo at the modern. And had I built my deck with Summoner's Pacts in them instead of Emrakul's, because I had Emrakul as the backup plan to Through the Breach in.
Right.
But if I had Summoner's Pacts instead, I would have easily 8-1'd.
Really?
Like,
okay.
yeah, because I lost. Okay, I Through the Breach in Emrakul 5 times and lost 3 of those games.
Whoa.
Right? Including twice to the guy that ended up winning the Grand Prix. The guy that won the Grand Prix, I played in round like 7 or 6. And I won game 1 easily by hulking him. And then I threw the breach in Emrakul and left him with like no permanents and 3 cards in hand and at 16 life. And then he went land, champion, plating. While I went draw all the lands and wild guesses.
Right.
And then game 3, I threw the breach in Emrakul, leaving him with no cards in hand.
Okay.
But I was at 3 because he Galvanic Blasted me.
Okay.
And he had 1 Darksteel Citadel in play, and he went 1-drop, Blink Moth Nexus, and I couldn't kill everything.
Oh man!
So I was like 95% to win that match yeah. So I think I was on the right track with that deck. And so if I was to play Modern tomorrow, I would play that.
Okay.
And then Legacy, I am always partial to Maverick.
Sure.
All my best finishes in Legacy have been Maverick, except for Grand Prix Chicago, when I basically almost top 30. I got 34th, I think, in Grand Prix Chicago.
Oh, just with breakers, huh?
Yeah, with I went lose in the last 2 rounds against Ad Nauseam Tendrils to miss top 8. If I had won, but I did that with Painter Grindstone, mono red Grindstone, and so that deck was a lot of fun too. But now there are Eldrazi in the format, so I can't really. I don't think I want to play that deck. But they don't see a ton of play. But sometimes you'll go like turn 1 pain or turn 2 grindstone, and they'll be like, haha, I have Emrakul in my deck. And you're like, well,
you're like, well, good game.
can't do anything, I guess.
Right.
But
Maverick's good.
I think Maverick is where I want to be at. I really like Maverick. I think that you beat all of the fair decks and you lose to all the unfair decks, and no one plays unfair decks anymore.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's a good assessment. Now, if you had to give like a tip to like an aspiring player, someone who's just kind of starting to play Magic or trying to get more competitive, what do you think you would tell them? What do you think kind of some of the advice you'd give would be?
I know
that's a really vague question, but
no,
you know.
I like it though. It's an important thing for people to know is like, where do you start, right? Like how do you start?
Right.
I guess when I started, I was lucky enough to have some people at my local card shop in Columbus when I was like literally 12, or 13, who took care of me and were like, "Don't worry." Like my mom didn't like to leave me at that comic book shop, for example, because it was in like not the greatest part of town. But a couple of the guys there were like, "Don't worry, Mom. You can leave him with us. He'll be fine." And eventually, she became comfortable enough with those guys that she let me be there. So I would say for people like me, be nice to the new players, help them out, give them your extra draft cards that you don't want. Because I know when I'm done drafting, I'm like, what do I want these commons for? You know what I mean?
All the time.
So give your commons and uncommons, useless rares to some little kid, and that'll help out a lot. But if you are a new player, one of the big things that I can suggest is try to introduce yourself and become friends with as many people in your area as you can.
Okay.
Because Magic is secretly a team sport. Nobody ever wins a PT. Like maybe one person will go on a run where they top 8 a couple of PTQs by themselves because they figured it out. But everyone who's ever done well at any Pro Tour is on a team of players that work together to figure the thing out. And so if you are new, try and get in with some players in your area, and just try and have a weekly get together, even if it's cube, to just play. Another thing I would suggest is the only way you really get better is by playing against players better than you.
Sure.
So if you have the best player in your city, in your play group, that's who you want to play against. I mean, I felt so lucky to have Sam Stoddard in my play group for so long because he was so much better than me.
Right, he's so good.
And I caught up a little bit eventually, to the point where I was one of the better players in the area. Okay. But I was, I was never pro or anything. But you just play against the best players that you can at all times.
Awesome. That is some good advice. I'm gonna list that out and put it on the screen for people so they can see that. That's awesome. So now I think we're about going to wrap this up. Do you have any shout outs you can throw out? How do people find your comedy stuff as well as your your Star City, your Magic stuff? What are your shout outs?
Well, if you go to StarCityGames.com and you look up Reuben Bressler, I'm sure my name will be in the notes. Because people misspell my name all the time.
I did the first time I tried to look you up.
Well, it's not the easiest name in the world. So if you go to StarCityGames.com, I got all my stuff on Star City. You're also YouTube.com/StarCityGames video has a lot of the past newsnings and deck techs and things like that.
Okay.
You can also go to InContentionMagic.com, which is the In Contention podcast, which is me, Joey Pasco, and Matt Kranstuber. We are coming up on our 100th episode. Our 100th episode is going to be released on Halloween Day.
Is it? Oh, yes. That's exciting.
The Wednesday that our thing goes up is Halloween, so that's going to be a fun one.
Sweet.
I have a comedy album. If you look up Reuben Bressler on Facebook, one of the pages that comes up is my personal page, and then another one is my stand-up comedy page.
Okay.
The stand-up comedy page has a link to my SoundCloud comedy album, which is a 1-hour album that I recorded last year, about a year and a half ago, a little less than a year and a half ago. And that's stand-up comedy. That's my album called Suggested Friend.
Okay.
And so go feel free to listen.
Check that out. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. And I think that's all I can really think of right now.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being on with us today. I mean, it was awesome. I really enjoyed this a lot. And
cool. Thanks.
I hope to be seeing you around soon and more coverage and more everything. I hope it keeps taking off and getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. If you see, where are you from?
I'm from Salt Lake, from Utah.
Oh, okay. So we aren't going back there.
Not anytime soon. But I try and travel around. I'll be in California for the Grand Prix, and I went to Denver for the Star City Open just a couple weekends ago. Like, I try and get around when I can. So
yeah, anytime I'm around, just come over and say hi.
Awesome, I definitely will. Thank you very much, man. I'm gonna let you go. Have a wonderful day.
You too. See ya.
Peace.